Have you ever struggled with habits that you feel like they're quote unquote bad habits or unhealthy habits? And with those habits, those unhealthy habits, we can feel a sense of shame. And especially as women, and I think as women in midlife and beyond, we can really struggle with certain types of habit change, whether it's food, alcohol, exercise. My guest today is Dr. Sherry Price. She is a pharmacist, certified life and weight loss coach, and host of the Healthy Habits and Epic Living podcast. Sherry is dedicated to helping women take charge of their health and wellness through lifestyle, mindset, and habit change. And that's what we're really going to dive into today. She has helped thousands of women up level their mindset, love that, and ditch the unhealthy habits with fitness and food. Welcome to the show, Sherry.
Thank you, Carol. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm excited to unpack habit change because I think that is at the base, the crux of everything. And I've said this so many times on this show that you can hand somebody the perfect plan for their nutrition, for their exercise, but if they can't implement it and they feel stuck, it really isn't going to do any good. Have you found that to be true working with women?
I have, and I will actually use a different example because I'm sure a lot of people could relate to that example. But my example was like when I was over drinking and drinking too much, a lot of people would just say, oh, well, just drink less, right? That's the new plan. We're just going to cut back on the amount of drinks. It sounds so lovely, but I was not successful consistently with it, right? So it kept going back to over drinking, kept going back to that same drink count, if you will, and struggling and really not understanding why can I change this over drinking habit. So I think it could be around food, it could be around alcohol, it could be around screen time, it could be around overworking. I do find that we get in this place where we're just comfortable with the way our brains have attached to these things, whether it's alcohol, food, or a way to cope or a way to emotionally manage. Sometimes it's easier to go to work and avoid problems at home. So I think we just become stuck in these ruts where we just keep doing the same thing because it's quite comfortable and our brain's used to it and our body's used to it. And to make change and to make habit change, it takes effort and it takes some time.
It sure does. And white knuckling just doesn't work most of the time, or berating yourself and getting in that cycle of, oh, I told myself I wasn't going to have that drink or that bottle of wine and I did it again, and then waking up and repeating the whole thing. And food could fall into this as well, just getting caught in that cycle. How did you break that cycle where you were drinking every night or most nights?
Yeah, I will say I read a lot of books, quit literature books. I looked at different blogs and Googled all the things, and I kept trying by myself. I kept trying, I kept trying, I kept trying. Uh, the 12-step programs never appealed to me because of my pharmacy degree. If I was ever discovered, they're not quite anonymous. You show up, they know your face.
Oh, yeah.
If I had that on my record at any point, if I saw a mental health care practitioner for a substance condition and that was on my medical record, right, that would put my job in jeopardy. And I feel a lot of healthcare people are in that same conundrum where they want help, but the avenues that are out there to get help might hit your medical record. And then, of course, everything you've built reputation wise and all that training and education could go down the tubes if your employer gets wind um, that you have some kind of condition that you're trying to treat. So it's sad because it's this place where people want help and want to get help, but oftentimes what's available may not be doable for their profession, their career. So that left me in this place of like, I want to help myself because I don't know where I can go to be really, truly anonymous about this. And I'm more of a private person, so I'm not loving big groups, big settings. I don't think all addictions, yes, they might have similar attributes to them, but being lumped together with other types of addicts, it just didn't seem like that was the most useful way and most effective way for me to help myself, right? I don't want to say get cured, but really to solve this issue. So I guess my brain was shut down to those avenues. And so I kept researching and I found a coach online and I'm like, this is it. And so this coach person helped me tremendously. And I got roughly to where I wanted to get to with reducing my drinking, but I still wanted more improvement. And then I found other coaches to help me get the rest of the way. So I really want people to hear that as a smart, intelligent person, sometimes you can't help yourself. And I think when people say this and talk about this, I know we all want to help ourselves and we're strongly, fiercely independent. I really think there is a time where you can tremendously benefit by being with somebody who's experienced this issue and has walked through it and to really help you come out the other side.
That's such a good point. You made two really good points. Being in the medical field, in any type of medical profession, whether it's pharmacy or you're a doctor, you're a nurse, it can feel pretty lonely if you're dealing with something like this and you feel like you can't reach out because of the privacy issues. So important. And then reaching out to a coach, getting the help, because a coach can really kind of come along beside of a person and give them that support. What was the most valuable thing that you got from coaching as far as tools?
Yeah, I got quite a few. So I think one of the most valuable things is for me, I wanted same gender. That was important and realized that that person had done what I have done. So it felt like she was removing the shame because there's a
Mm,
shame component. Like, why can't I solve this? I'm
right.
smart. I know this isn't going to lead to anything good. I know my health is going to deteriorate from this. This could get worse. You know, all of that shame stuff. And it kind of blocks you from believing in yourself. So working with her and that a coach, really, I saw that she had given me so many examples where she's helped others through this. She's helped her, got help through this, and just giving me that belief that I can do this. Because so many times you fail, right? And it's like,
Oh yeah.
oh, another dry January, I made it, but why by February 2nd, I'm like drinking a whole bottle of wine again? Like this doesn't make sense. I didn't want it. I was good at not doing any alcohol for a month. And of course, here I am back to the habit again. So it was really nice to have somebody start to peel away the shame, dive into the shame, right? Like really look at it. Because I think if we just keep ignoring it, we won't really get all the answers of why exactly we are doing the habit that we're doing. Right? There's some benefit to the habit. Otherwise, we wouldn't be keep doing it. So really understanding what is the benefit and how can I derive that a similar benefit but just in a healthier format, right? If it's looking like for me, it was stressful job, stressful work, wanted to just, my daughter was going through some stressful times at school as well. It just felt like a lot. And it was just something I used to de stress at night and never thought it would get to this habit formation, but it did. And so, really understanding what were the drivers to the drinking really helped and that really started to peel away the shame. So that was one big thing that I really found was helpful in just having that person come alongside you, believe in you, and talk about what it is that you're thirsty for, right? We're drinking because we're thirsty for something. And if you're overeating, you're hungry for something. So really looking at the deeper level of why it is you're doing the behavior. And I think that's so important to investigate that. And I love when you work with somebody, they're just asking out of curiosity. When you ask yourself these questions, you're asking with like a form of judgment, a form of you're not good enough. Like, why can't you just, like you said, white knuckle it or put your bootstraps on and get through this? So there's judgment when we ask ourselves. But when you work with a great coach, there's no judgment, there's just curiosity. And so it really opened my mind to like, oh, let me just see this as like a check engine light that is on my car. And my car needs now to go to the shop and mechanic's going to say, hey, this is what's wrong with the car. This is why the check engine light is coming on. Would you like to have it fixed? So I just needed to know like what was turning on that check engine light, right? I really needed to get under the hood and look at what was the driver. So those tools were absolutely beneficial. And then having other ways to manage it rather than just drink less, which wasn't working for me. Right. It's like, okay, what does that look like? Because in my mind is like, is that every day? Is that just take one day off? Does that mean one less drink a day? Like, there's so many different ways you can drink less. And my mind would just scurry out of control thinking, what's the right way? Whereas she had other tools where it didn't even look at the alcohol, right? It's like, okay, let's just look at what's driving the alcohol and manage that part. So I think getting ahead of it, getting ahead of the behavior and managing what's going on there. So for a lot of people, it's their emotions, right? Like we just need to become a little more emotionally resilient, understand what the emotions are coming up, where's the stress coming from, how can we mitigate some of that stress, um, and really just get to the root cause of what's causing the behavior.
Mm. And I think too, with both alcohol and food, it's doing something to the pleasure center of the brain. So then we forget how to derive pleasure from other things in life. How did you, because I feel like, okay, you give up drinking or moderate it or cut it down. I feel there has to be a replacement of something. Did you find that to be true?
It's a, yes, in a way, and no, in a way. So when I think about replacing it, there would be nothing that would come to my mind which would be equivocal. So that's why I say there's a yes and a no, because if you talk to anybody who drinks alcohol, like nothing gives you that pleasure than another glass
Hmm.
of alcohol. So probably I imagine for people who overeat as well, right? It's like that one substance your brain becomes locked in on. So
Hmm.
it almost feels like that you can't derive that amount of pleasure from anything else. And so I will say for probably first week or two, maybe even three, there is that deficit because your body is readjusting, your brain is readjusting, right? These dopamine highs that you're getting from the excess sugar or carbs or, alcohol, your brain is going to feel a little deficient until it rebalances. And so that's why I say no initially, but then yes, because after that time frame where your body readjusts, you do get pleasure again and you get more pleasure from the things that didn't used to bring you as much pleasure. So I have a
Hmm.
great example of this, and it's like really embarrassing that when I started telling it at first I felt so bad, but now I really understand why this happened. So my drinking would commence after dinner or during dinner and then continue on. And my daughter was little at the time, and she was in this phase where she didn't want to stay in her room and she felt she could come out at bedtime. And so she'd be really nice. Can I have water? Can I have this? Can I have another book read? Like, so one day I'm downstairs drinking my Chardonnay, which I was loving. I was probably on my third glass, and she comes down, Mommy, I just want to give you a kiss on the cheek. And she gives me a kiss on the cheek, and I like wipe it off, and I said, just get to bed. And
Mm.
that kiss like really didn't. I didn't feel it. There wasn't much pleasure derived from that because I was getting so much pleasure from the alcohol. And I'm like, wow. When she went up to bed that night, I was just like, I can't believe I don't even, I feel kind of heartless that that kiss didn't really send my oxytocin, like nothing, no bells, no whistles from that. However, when I did cut back on drinking significantly and she did that again, it like was like fireworks. It's like how a mom I think should respond, right? So I was feeling bad because I couldn't respond in the way a typical mom or a good mom in my mind, right, would respond. And I wipe it off my cheek and I'm like, why am I telling this to like a 4-year-old? And so when it happens again later, and I really did feel the fireworks go off. So I think your brain resets itself and rebalances and goes back to homeostasis. But it's going to take a little bit of time.
Mm. What a beautiful example. I mean, really beautiful example because yeah, that alcohol is filling that void that's kind of the pleasure, but then at a cost where then other things that should bring us so much joy and warm our heart, it's like,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
we're numbed out. We're not
Yeah.
feeling it.
Yeah. And we feel annoyed, right? We're just like, I want to get back to my drinking. Go to bed, kid. Right. I mean, you talk to people, it's like alcohol brings out sometimes a different persona in people. Sometimes not bad, but sometimes you're just like, you want to be left alone. And I hear that a lot from women that I work with. It's like, that's my time. When I start drinking, I just feel like I can relax. Nobody needs anything from me. and it's just my time. So that this becomes the ritual that they habitually do because they're signaling to themselves, like, now I'm on break. Now I can actually take a break. I don't have to be on. I don't have to be doing dishes, laundry, answering emails. Like, this is just my time.
The wind down, as they
Yes,
call it. And
exactly.
it really accelerated, I think, in 2020 with the pandemic and women being, well, everyone was closed in the house. I saw personally a lot more of this in clients for sure.
Same. Yeah, my business really started taking off around that time too. Yeah.
Now, I want to dig into moderation a little bit because that's kind of this buzzword. It goes around. We hear it in conjunction with food, and now we're hearing it in conjunction with alcohol. I know there's all these apps now that people can download and help them not necessarily quit drinking, but moderate. How do you feel about moderation? Is it possible? Is it possible for some people and not others?
Yeah, I would think you don't know. I will say my personal journey, I was drinking Chardonnay, roughly probably 5, 6 nights a week. It was just my habit. I would never felt like an addict because I didn't really feel like I wanted it. It wasn't appealing to me in the morning time. I thought, I'm not going to drink today every morning because I'm just like, wrote it off. My stomach was sour from the night before. I'm just like, I don't want it. Somewhere around 3, 4 o'clock, it would start entering my thoughts again. Um, but I would not do like anything crazy to procure it, right? Like it
Hmm.
wasn't like I would rob a store or anything like that. Like I wasn't doing anything harmful. I wasn't drunk driving. I didn't feel it was at the addict level. Now I just say that because that's why I call it my habit. And thinking about, can I be a person who just can take it or leave it? That's what I wanted. I just wanted to be a normal drinker. What I considered a normal drinker was somebody who could just take it or leave it. Like, yeah, I might drink tonight. Yeah, nah, I don't feel like it. Right. Those, nah, I don't feel like it days were very limited in the years that I've spent over drinking. And I wanted to see if I could get back to that place. What I had read from the stats on the CDC and the NI uh, National Institutes of Alcoholics and Alcoholic Use. I think they've rebranded that terminology now, but just looking at the data that they had, some people are able to moderate. And I was kind of excited by that. I'm like, wow, maybe I could be one of those people, but I didn't know going into it if I could, right? So that
Hmm.
was my goal, was to moderate if I could. I do believe some people can't. I do believe this gets to be so severe or gets a hold of their brain in some kind of way where people aren't able to moderate. But it takes time to really learn which camp you're going to be in, I believe. And it really does take some soul searching and inner work to get to what is leading to the drinking and what's causing that. So for me, it was mostly I didn't know how to deal with my anger, my disappointment, my stress. It was very emotional based. And so once I understood other tools and how to become more emotionally intelligent and resilient, then my dependency on alcohol went down tremendously. Now I feel like I don't like the word cope, but I can go through life and I have other tools to help me when I get disappointed or tired or angry or stressed out, that alcohol is no longer the first solution my brain proposes, which I think is phenomenal. So that just goes into like all this data we have now in the neuroscience, that neuroplasticity can happen. And I think that's lovely to know that, because we didn't know that 50 years ago, that the brain can change in so many different ways. And now we have so much more data on neuroplasticity. And I don't know if you follow the work of Joe Dispenza and others that
Yes.
just really
Hmm.
talks about the way we can change our brain, can change our response to pain, how we, can cure certain conditions. And I just really love that we now tapped into that new science and can liberate people from where they are in pain or struggling with a habit that they don't like.
That's very exciting. I agree with you because so many years ago, I remember growing up and somebody who would say have a problem, not necessarily like what I would call a addiction drinking problem, but just something like what you described where it's a habit and they're just reaching for that glass of wine or they go out with friends. But there was this idea that, okay, this is a sickness, this is a disease. you have this type of addictive personality, there's no way. And now we're finding that the brain, as you said, that neuroplasticity, that we can change habits, we can reframe, we can redirect, but not everyone. And I love that you distinguish. Have you ever had situations where you've had to have a hard conversation with somebody where saying, you know what, moderation simply isn't going to work? Perhaps you should seek counseling, a program.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. I want to be as forthright as I can when I work with people. This may or may work. This may or may not work. And there are some people I do turn away because just by the questions and the intake form that I do, it's looking a little too serious, at least to work with me initially. Maybe they need a center or an inpatient or an outpatient kind of program first. Um, because your brain has to be open to want change, and some people are so committed to their stories about, I don't want to give up the alcohol, um, and that is kind of a red flag, right? I want to want your help, but I actually don't want your help. So that's something I listen for, and for sure, will recommend other alternatives for individuals.
Mm. Yeah, I've had to do the same, not so much with alcohol, but certain food issues where
Mm,
I realize, there's a deeper issue here than just this initial habit change. They need some help. Perhaps it's a severe binging,
mm.
purging, things such as that. So I know I run into that too, and asking those questions is so important. Now, how you work with women now, can you walk us through how are you starting them out? What habits are you focusing on? What does that look like?
Yeah. And before I get there, I just want to say I've had actually on the flip side, the other kind of client who says, I've tried all these outpatient programs or 12-step programs, and I've been in and out. I've relapsed. And so I felt bad going back. And finally I did go back. But so in and out of centers, and other programs. And then they come to work with me, and they're just feeling like, wow, this was what I've been looking for. So I do want to say that, there's people that start here and then come this way and then start with me and then have to go the other way. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that and give people hope, because I think, we know that the definition of insanity is to keep trying the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So I do want to point that out too, because I think it comes to light here. If you keep working with the same type of program and you're really not making more progress than what you initially got, it may be time to consider other modalities that might be more attractive and more effective for you.
That's
So
a
yeah,
really good point. Really
yeah,
good point.
yeah. Because I know people said, "Oh, I tried therapy for this," and I kept going to the therapist and the therapist, and then I wasn't feeling good about. I got initial results, but then it started to feel wonky, and I was like, I just kept showing up because I didn't know what else to do, and then we had this long-term relationship, and I didn't know how to break it off, but I really wasn't getting more value from it, and then I found myself lying. So if you're doing all those things, those are red flags to say it's time. It's time. Cut it with that therapist, look for a different therapist or a coach or a different modality, but don't stick with something that's not giving you continuous value. So yeah, turning to how I start out with people, it's really a series of questions where I'm asking them, about their life. If it's around alcohol, because now I do other types of habit changes. It could be around food, it could be around banishing belly fat, right? These are all banishing belly fat or breaking up with alcohol or the result. But we want to really get into what is the patterns that they're having in their life, because I find that the brain works in patterns, right? We wake up, we brush our teeth, shower, blah blah blah. We have a pattern. We take the same pattern the same way to work, right? So we're just very pattern driven. So I really like getting into, when does the pattern start? When does your brain start thinking about this pattern? What does this pattern alleviate? What kind of benefits does it give to you? What kind of benefits are you looking for? Are these the benefits you want, right? Because I might get less stress, but what I actually want is something else, right? So what are the wants, and then what are the benefits coming from the pattern, and then looking at repatterning the brain and using tools to do that. So a lot of it's at first is really learning more about my client, what's going on for her, How long has this pattern been going on? And then what's her ideal way of looking at her life and how she wants it to change? Because I could have my agenda, but that might not serve my client, right? And so I think it's really important that they usually have a vision of how they want to be. And so we honor what that vision is and work goals towards that vision.
Oh, I love this. You're talking my language because vision is so important, and letting that client express their vision, because sometimes we assume, oh, they're coming to me for XYZ.
Yeah.
And then you start talking and it's something entirely different that they're
Yes.
picturing. And so it's so important to honor that, unpack that, let them look ahead a year or 2 years and say, this is what I'd like to achieve. This is how I'd like to feel. And I love that you put that into your coaching practice.
Yeah, Carol, I have a quick example if I can interrupt and let you know. Like one of the my clients last year, she came to me about the drinking, and we kept unpacking the drinking, unpacking the drinking, and I said, "I think there's something else here. What is it? Why you want to drink less? What's going to be better?" And she said, "I'm going to have a better relationship with my husband." And I said, "Okay." So then we went on this whole thing with her husband, and what does that relationship look like? And she felt like she wasn't being honored and respected. And I said, "Okay, well, that has nothing to do with the drinking. Let's put the drinking thing aside. And now let's focus on what you really want, which is like newness and freshness and love back in your marriage." And she's like, "We can do that? I can get that? I'm in my 60s." I'm like, "We can absolutely get that." And so she lit up like a Christmas tree. Like she just almost wanted to cry because she's like, "That's what I really want. I thought it was this drinking thing, but I think I'm drinking because I'm so unhappy in my marriage." And so it just in like a few weeks, her marriage started to turn around. She started getting the results that she wanted. And then she's like, "You hit it. I never thought it was a relationship with my husband that was driving my drinking. Never, ever thought that. And now I don't even crave alcohol because I crave my husband." And it was just
Oh,
so beautiful to really uncover what was really driving the whole behavior that she didn't want.
and really, you gave her that space. Had you not asked the questions you asked, you all would have gone down that one road. Okay, it's all about the alcohol, when in reality, there was something underlying, there was something deeper.
Yeah. And she didn't even believe she could get it. And that's what I mean. That's what a coach gave to me, like this belief that I could solve my drinking issue. This belief that I gave her was, yeah, you can have a better marriage, you know? And she just didn't think that was possible. It was like age attached. It was attached to things that she thought, were out of her control, and it wasn't. So you're right. It's beautiful when you get to really customize and really get to understand the root of the problem.
This is resonating with me because I'm going through the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy for their certification, and they are very big on the client has the answers within them,
Hmm.
and very big on the vision and asking the right kind of questions to get to that vision so that they can get to the goal. Whereas I know for me, for a long time, being in, I did bodybuilding shows, I trained other women for those, fitness nutrition plans. I was very prescriptive.
Hmm.
And then I started finding out maybe that person didn't even want that. They
Mm.
wanted to be able to pick up their grandkids, or they wanted to be able to lift their suitcase overhead into the bin, and they didn't want to look like a bodybuilder or a bikini model or whatever. And so I think, just again, allowing that space for somebody to explore what they really want and that it's possible.
Yeah, yeah. I remember I was looking at a coach to help me with my posture, and I was reading a sales email I had received, and it talked about all about how she helps women with their posture. And I said, "Oh, I want to help with that." And then when I get on the call with her, and then she tells me how she's going to do everything else. I'm going to get good biceps. I'm going to get a great microbiome. And I tell you, by the end of the call, I didn't want to work with her because I didn't want any of that. I know she can help me with all of that, but I just wanted the posture. So it's interesting, right? When we think that people want all of these things. It might just be they're coming to you for one thing.
One
And
thing.
really
Hmm.
solving that one thing is what's going to get me getting better biceps, caring about my microbiome, all of that. But I wasn't caring about any of that. I just wanted to fix my posture. So you're right. Really getting to why somebody's coming to you and what is it that they truly want, that they feel is the next step in their health and wellness journey.
Yes, and letting them choose the starting point because she wanted you to go over to the microbiome and she wanted you to have the biceps and all of that. You're just like, I just want to sit up straight and stand straight. And
Right. I just want to not cane over. Yeah.
now with habit change, and we were talking about this a little bit before we started the video. Have you found there's differences like for younger people as opposed to perimenopausal, as opposed to menopausal, men, women? And if so, what are those differences?
Yeah. I think habit change, when your brain is in that high neuroplasticity phase, like teens, early adulthoods, right? They can quickly adapt if they want it. What I find doesn't work is if their parents push them to work with a coach or somebody and they're just doing it to check the, box for parents' approval. They're not really interested, right? And I mention that because that is the leading thing that helps adults. So we might not have the quickness in the neuroplasticity part, but what really fuels adults is I really want this. And when you can get to that part where like I really want this, like for me, I really wanted better posture, right? Give me the exercises to do that. Let me know exactly what I need to do because I am motivated in this moment to do those exercises. So I think that level of I want this is what drives neuroplasticity. I feel, I mean, I don't have scientific evidence on that, but I feel when people come to me and they say I really want this, the more they are committed to wanting that, the it's almost like they're willing to put in more effort rather
Mm,
than being lukewarm.
yes,
Yeah. And so,
I would agree. I
yeah,
would most definitely agree because I'm even thinking in terms of my own journey and how I got going on bodybuilding was I wanted a certain look. And I saw that look of, okay, I want to look like I work out. I don't want to do all this working out and not look like, I don't work out. I wanted that definition. I wanted the muscle tone, as women often say. And that drove the starting point. Now it branched off from there. It became other things,
yeah,
but I wanted it really badly. And I've had women come and say, I want to do a show. And I'll often ask, how much do you want it? Because this is hard. And if you don't really want this, you're just going to be fighting your own mind and body the entire way. You've got to really want it.
yeah. And Carol, what would you say? I find going from 0%, like not doing any exercises or not doing anything about my posture, to going to like 1 or 2% is the biggest step. You know, I don't know if you feel when working with clients, sometimes when they're already at 10%, 20% of the way there, they have now momentum, which helps them
Mm,
continue. I think for a lot of people that, that's why that app Couch to 5K took off, right? Because
yeah.
people are like, I'm at 0%. Is there any hope? Can you just get me to 1 or 2%? And I think that part is magical. And when you can just get that part going, the rest and the momentum pick up. What do you feel about that when it comes to
Oh,
habit change?
I agree 100%. The most challenging is when somebody they have a journey ahead of them. Let's say it's a weight loss journey. They really want to lose X amount of pounds, and it's quite a bit. It's not 5 or 10, but they got a ways to go. And getting that momentum going can take it can take time. It could literally take months to get over that little 1% hump and get them going. And I've learned to kind of back off and say, how much are you moving now? Well, can we get your steps to, I don't know, 4 or 5,000, not just throw the 10,000 plus steps at them, for instance.
Yeah.
Can we move the needle just a little bit that direction and kind of coax it along?
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes, when I was working with drinking less, and working with my coach, and then taking this same modality and working with others, I wasn't interested in cutting it by 50% right at the out of the gates. That felt too scary for me. What would I do with all this anxiety? What would I do with all this stress? Like, I'm not interested in meditation, but thank you very much. Like, I'm not interested in the things that I've read that help for stress. I've tried it twice and it didn't work. Right. So my brain was closed off, but it was very fearful to go down to 50% less alcohol. If you were to tell me I had to like not drink 3 of the 6 nights that I was drinking, no, thank you. So I'm so thankful that we found strategies to help me get there. Right. And even doing one less drink a week felt like progress for me, and it really loosened my grip on it, right? Because I think mentally we grip on something, like mentally I so want this, don't take it away from me. I'm not a bad person, I just have this behavior I don't really want, but there's something scary if you take this away from me. So I'm in agreement with you, is that you got to be willing to do what the client is willing to do, and start there, because that's when you can get change, even if it's slow, but then you build on that.
You're right. I remember training for my first show, and I don't recommend this. I went from eating all the things to eating practically none of the things, and the cravings were through the roof. But I remember you do get a little fearful. Like I had this thing about pancakes every Saturday morning, and right before I started training for the show, I was like gorging on pancakes every single day, thinking, I'm not going to have these for 12, 16 weeks. And so the brain will latch on to something,
Yeah.
whether it's that glass of wine or that pancake or that piece of cake. And when
Yeah.
you go to take that away, it's emotional and it's difficult for people.
Yeah. Right. And you feel like, you just, my brain just went to, I'm a bad person, that if something needs to be taken away from me, I can't be trusted, or I can't be counted on, or, um, yeah, I'm just not trusted around this substance. And that felt really hard pill to swallow.
Now, when you were cutting back, were you tracking? Did your coach or coaches have you tracking and then you were just tapering back?
Yes, yes, I did track. I didn't want to track initially, so we didn't track, and that was just where I was. I was kind of, I really want this, but then I dug my heels in. So I signed up, paid the money, and then you kind of get that buyer's remorse. You're like, "Oh crap, right? Now I have to do the work, right? It sounded great a day ago, but now that it's tomorrow, like this doesn't sound so great." So then I dug my heels in a bit. I am a Taurus. I am quite stubborn. So, um, and that's okay, right? And she just worked with me, and she's like, "You'll come around. You'll come around. It's okay." And so I didn't want to count and track initially, so we didn't, and then eventually we got there. And I think
Mm,
it was felt punitive, and that's why I didn't like it. And so when we looked at it from a different perspective on how is this not punitive, how is this not punishment, how is this not, pointing out your flaws or your deficits or whatever, when we came at it from a different angle of this is going to really benefit us, and it's just data and it's just numbers, right? And this is really what's going to give us momentum eventually. This is going to help you, maybe not this week, but maybe in weeks to come. Are you willing to look at it? And so one week it was a no, but then eventually it became a yes.
I see this even with macro counting. Sometimes people are very resistant, and I try to educate them. This is just a tool. It's
Mm-hmm.
just data. It's just
Mm-hmm.
information. But women get so caught up. I've got to hit those numbers. And if I don't hit those numbers, I'm going to throw the whole thing out the window. I failed.
Yeah. I wonder if that comes from like the scale mentality. Like if I'm not that
Yeah.
number on the scale, I'm not thin enough, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not, I don't know, sexy, or whatever the stories are that we have in our heads, which is why mindset work is so powerful to do along with habit change, because you really do have to work with your mind, because your mind will battle you for
Yeah,
sure.
we're kind of back to that beginning where you can hand somebody that perfect plan, but if they're not doing the
Yeah.
mindset work, they kind of just get stuck. And
Yeah.
then there is that buyer's remorse, there is that guilt, there is that shame that goes along with it. Now, did you become a coach after you went through your whole journey, or were you
I
coaching?
did. No, I
Okay.
was full blown pharmacist, 100%. Never thought I would do another type of role. I loved pharmacy, wanted to work at it until I was 70. And then when this drinking thing happened, and I started learning about coaching and mindset work and how this can like heal people and alleviate some of mental illness, emotional illness, physical illness. I was like, wow, this is such a powerful modality that I didn't learn in pharmacy school. I really want to learn more about it. So I got trained and certified. Um, and I couldn't go back. I'm like, okay, pills help a little bit. They help with symptoms, but they don't really change the trajectory of many diseases. Some, yes, but many, no. They're just more symptom based, right? Like if you have pain, take Advil, but Advil's not going to extend your life, or Tylenol, right? So it was like, oh, wait, the power of the mind can really start healing the body. I mean, the mind was what healed my drinking. It wasn't just staying away from alcohol because I had so much desire for it. I kept going back to it. But where did I have the desire? It wasn't in my heart, my leg, my arm. It was in my brain. And so my brain was so attractive to this. And once I understood, like, I can change the attraction I have to something with the power of my mind, like, wow. So, you could do that with so many things: porn, food, overworking. My anger got better. I learned tools to manage that, and disappointment, because I'm a perfectionist, got to achieve type of personality. So if I'm not hitting all 17 items on the to-do list, or there's still one left, I'm berating myself. It's that perfectionistic mentality that I needed to really get under and say, why do I have this? Where did this come from? And is this helping me? It's not. It's stressing me out. It's raising my blood pressure. It's making me like an angry person. And I don't want to be an angry person. I want to be a happy person. So I think these tools were just so transformational in my life. I now have a so much better relationship with my daughter and my husband than I did. And they were decent relationships then, but now they're just, through the roof, which is awesome. And so I'm like, this is where I want to be. And so I left pharmacy and did coaching.
Wow, what a big leap to leave something you thought you'd do, right up into your older years, your senior years, and completely shift the trajectory of your life. And I know that's a big, big step.
Yeah, it was scary for sure, because I'm giving up all that training and all those degrees, all that work, and then just going into coaching, which felt like in a way, it felt like a back step, but I knew in my mind it felt totally aligned with where I wanted to be and a forward step.
Well, you've got that complete view all the way around, that complete view where you see the medical side, you see the pharmaceutical side, but then the mindset, the mindset coaching, the lifestyle coaching, you see all of that together. And I think that is the best vantage point to be. I have had the same nurse practitioner for many, many years since I was 51. I'm 62 now, and one of the things I love about her is she's so integrative. She's
Hmm.
not like, oh, all medicine's bad, all Western medicine's bad, or, it's all about supplement. It's everything together. And I think with your background, you're able to see things a lot more clearly.
Yeah, and it gives me a level of compassion that I didn't have before, because I just didn't walk outside of the conventional medicine walls that much. So it's really expanded my mind. It's expanded my heart. It's expanded um, my toolbox as well. Sure, there's times we want symptom relief. Absolutely. There's times where, a Western medicine serves the job very well, but there's times where, it's more the lifestyle change and the habit piece. I mean, that's where our true health is, right? Being at the doctor's office, what, 2, 3 times a year, if you're relatively healthy, that's not where true medicine is. Medicine and health is really on the things that you do on a daily basis. And that's what I became really interested in, because, it is what you put in your mouth, it is what you consume, how much you poop, all the things that really drive the holistic part of us and makes us whole and well. If we ignore any parts of that, that's when disease can take hold. So I do love having this broader perspective now.
I was thinking as you were speaking, so if somebody they're moderating, they're cutting back or cutting out alcohol, whatever their case is, are you looking at supporting them with nutrition, the nutritional piece, and then any supplementation of anything to support their journey?
It depends on how much they are drinking alcohol, but we know alcohol takes down all the B vitamins. So replenishing B vitamins, taking a good B
Mm,
vitamin complex is very helpful, right? We know it wears on the brain. It causes cognitive decline early. It shrinks the brain, alcohol does. And so, yes, I look at modalities if they are interested and interested in supplementation about other modalities to strengthen the brain, particularly. We can strengthen the liver, but the brain takes a big hit. And I don't think that gets talked enough about in the literature. I
agreed.
think it's all the cirrhosis and the
Agreed.
liver transplant. Everybody's worried about the liver. But the nice thing about the liver is it could regenerate,
Hmm.
so if we stop it in enough time or slow it down, the liver will take care of itself. The brain, I think the brain needs a lot more help, and the brain is involved in so many processes. And as you probably know, the perimenopause menopause time is when you get all the brain symptoms, the fog, can't remember those
Hmm.
words. um, so there is a natural decline in aging to the brain, so to boost the brain I think is really helpful.
I love that you hit on that 'cause it's so important and it's not being discussed enough. And women in particular are very vulnerable to, or I should say, can be vulnerable to dementia and Alzheimer's. And I see it with friends now who are caring for parents who, mothers who have dementia, have Alzheimer's. It's frightening.
Hmm.
And I think being proactive with how we care for our brain, and especially once we hit, well, it should start much earlier than that, but once we hit those perimenopausal years, it's just paramount.
Yeah. Yeah. I even have my daughter who's 13 on fish oil. I mean, really, because
Hmm.
our diets don't get the amount of fish oil and DHEA and all of that, or DHA and EPA that it needs. So I know I take it. I have my daughter on it. I have my husband on it. I just think it's really important to be neuroprotective.
I agree, 100%. Now, as we start to wrap up, Sherry, was there anything, because I want to be respectful of your time, was there anything I didn't ask you that you want to share with the listeners?
Oh, there's a question that I get asked quite a bit because I'm a habit coach is like, how long does it take to institute
Ooh,
a new habit?
good one.
Because there's data on, people have heard it's 42 days, it's
Hmm.
3 weeks, it's 3 months, right? There's all of that data. And I think in James Clear in his book Atomic Habits really breaks down that the data is so weak on that. It's so weak. We don't know how long it's going to take to really build a new habit. But why should we care if it's something we really want in our lives? And as long as we're taking that daily action, or even if we can't take daily action, every other day action, we are still moving in the right direction of building that new habit, which eventually starts to lay the groundwork in the brain and starts to restructure the brain and that neuroplasticity. So it will happen. We just don't have a firm number of days that it will take. So I just want to leave your listeners with that, because if they feel like they've been at something a short period of time or a long period of time, a lot of times we are always asking, how much longer is it going to take? It's like the kid in the car. Are we there yet? But really, looking at the journey more than the destination is going to be most helpful in building a new habit.
That is such a good point, and I really love that you hit on that because I've seen it take different times for different people. I've
Yeah.
seen people have to go all the way through a 12, 16-week program and they're just scratching the surface, and then some people just like take off like a shot
Hmm.
and change things. And so I think, personality, background, so many different things can play into this. So it's great that you hit on that point, so that someone doesn't feel like, oh, there's something wrong with me. It's taking too long.
Right, right. And that really made sense of why one dry January once a year wouldn't work. It just wasn't enough time.
4 weeks or whatever it is, four and a half.
Right. Not when you're, going against 8, 9 years of chronic drinking. So yeah, that just wasn't enough time. And I think people, can learn from other people's journeys. And so I just want to share that with your
Mm.
audience.
Thank you for being so transparent and really sharing and being honest about what you went through. it was inspiring for me to hear. I was very inspired. So thank you so much, Sherry.
Thank you, Carol. This has been a lovely discussion.
And how can our listeners get a hold of you, work with you, learn more about you?
Yeah, so I have a podcast as well, as you mentioned in the intro, Health Habits and Epic Living. And then I do work with women about breaking bad habits, instituting better habits. And you can find me on my website, EpicYou, that's EPICYOU.com. And I'm also at the Instagram handle at Dr. Sherry Price.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sherry. I'll make sure it's all in the show notes. I encourage the listeners to follow Sherry, follow her work, reach out to her. I really enjoyed this discussion. Thank you so much again.
Thanks, Carol.
And to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing. Bye for now.